Hi, so good afternoon. Actually, it's not quite noon. It's 10 to noon, so good forenoon. This is my second video in this four-part series about the smear people. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody who watched part one. It was my first ever YouTube video, and I could not be more thrilled with the response. People have been incredibly kind and effusive and delightful. I had no expectation that I would receive so many comments and subscriptions after just my first video. So thank you for all of you who contributed to that. I am positively beaming. So I had realized I should probably start my videos with a small disclaimer about the fact that I don't have any professional qualifications. I am literally just doing these videos for your entertainment and mine. My background is that I have an English degree, and I am an ex-heavy equipment mechanic. I've raised one child, and that's my situation now. My credentials really for this, I'm sure everybody here is aware of the injunction against psychologists, psychiatrists, professionals, mental health professionals of any kind, diagnosing people that they have never met or been in any kind of session with or done any kind of official diagnosis of. And I do agree with that, in large part. But I also know that very often psychiatrists and people who are in a position to diagnose these types of personalities have spent, maybe 10 or 12 hours with a person before making a diagnosis. And those of us who have been victimized by these types of people have often spent years, even decades, in their company. And so I feel like that's a different kind of qualification. But for me, I can often recognize toxic people pretty quickly. And honestly, I would have to give my central nervous system the credit for that. There's something about, there's something about them that sends off signals of not being safe. Anyway, so this is my second video, and welcome to my channel if this is your first time here, and if it's your second time here, welcome back, and thank you all for coming.
Into that morality play. For me, I'm less interested in his biography, and I'm more interested in his actual art.
Yeah.
And I want to evaluate him on that terrain.
Fair.
Rather than in terms of morality, right? But it shows that human beings have this knee-jerk reaction to go after moral issues.
Yeah.
In fact, like this whole idea of cancel culture, this whole idea of harming people on the internet is based on this idea of humans being moral creatures on moral crusades, trying to assert their moral superiority.
I think that what this shows is that Dr. John is so eager to be evaluated on his work because his morality sucks. And it seems like he's not aware that he's admitting that. Like that his morality and Lauren's is very suspect. So that's why he has to insist on this evaluation in the terrain of his work, which, as I feel like I may have said last time, once or twice, is kind of mediocre anyway. So anyway, carrying on.
Yeah. With or without, most often without moral authority, but moral authority is a tricky issue.
Lauren's fake reflective answers are so twee, honestly. I mean, I feel like I'm maybe going to kind of go off on her and pick on her a little more than maybe is technically nice, but I feel like it's legitimate criticism because of the fact that she is, again, she's positioning herself as this empathetic helper person who's out there trying to, get justice for victims and all that. But it's an act. And all of this is part of that act. And so I feel like it's fair game for criticism.
So I don't want to get into that too much. I mean, because, ironically, I think some of the people on the smear campaign would say that their moral authority comes from God. Yeah. And so I think
oh, he thinks that's very funny.
I think there's a religious component, right? So if you have God on your side and you're right, so being right in this case means that they're morally superior, and they're right because they're trying to show that you are immoral and that you have poor character, and therefore you should be canceled. And they're trying to show that with evidence that's flimsy at best.
Again, I don't really think that that's what people are trying to show, or certainly it wasn't what they were trying to show at first. I think at first people were wanting some accountability. And these people have crashed and burned in the accountability department. And so now people are, to my mind, perfectly free to say, yeah, I don't want to watch their channel. I think that their opinions are bullshit. Or, pardon my language for those of you who thought I could get through a couple of sentences without cursing, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like if you're going to put yourself out in the public eye the way that these two have done and the way that I am doing right now, that you should be open to be accountable for what you put out there. And if you're not willing to be accountable, then you should expect that people will have strong opinions about that. I mean, he keeps everything that he's, every theory that he's trotting out here is to show that people are a certain way. And to a certain extent, yeah, he's right. People are a certain way. And one of the ways that people are is that they want to see accountability for bad behavior.
Or with evidence that, with evidence that you've seen and apologized for. I mean, yeah. But I just think, that's problematic. So let's take it a step further. So people are going to say, oh, so what? All right. So people engage in this moral crusade, and people see themselves as good fundamentally and moral, blah, blah, blah. Who cares, right? So, okay, so Brad Pitt, may have done this abusive thing. Maybe some people think they should cancel him for that. Maybe they don't care about his work, right? So people are saying, maybe, all right, so they're going after you for being immoral or whatever. People are trying to cancel you. Why should we care?
And I want to point out, I've canceled businesses because their values don't adhere to mine. I mean, that's fair, right?
Yeah, I mean, right. If people
not canceled, not gone on and tried to start a smear campaign, but learned maybe a business isn't one I want to support.
I'm not suggesting.
And if people feel that about us, I get it.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm not saying.
A rare moment of actual proper reflection and insight from Lauren. Well done. Credit where it's due.
I'm pointing out the disparity between focusing almost exclusively on moral issues,
right,
versus ignoring the work.
Right.
But John is here to tell her why she's wrong, so. Yeah.
If you see someone as deeply immoral and there's evidence of that, not preconceived notions of it. Mm-hmm.
So he's saying that there are only preconceived notions about what, that he and Lauren are somehow evil, or that Lauren is, or that their behavior is not good, or that they're badly immoral, or whatever. And I would ask him to, A, define preconceived notions, and B, point out some of these preconceived notions instead of just, again, skating past without defining your terms or any of that sort of thing, which is, for someone who's supposed to be so deeply into research and who's supposed to be a psychologist, he doesn't seem to be all that big on mentioning the limitations of his opinions or his studies or any of that sort of thing.
Then yeah, I think sure, people have the right to judge things as being immoral and not consistent with their values, and then not caring, not paying attention to someone's work. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, there's certain people like me. There might be moral questions around Brad Pitt, but it doesn't really affect me. I'm not really interested in his personal life.
I feel again this is just another admission. He keeps admitting throughout this whole thing that he doesn't care about immoral behavior, that if it doesn't affect him, he doesn't care about it. And it's really, I don't know, I feel like that's like deeply troubling in a psychologist, particularly someone who is entrusted with deciding whether or not people are, a risk to reoffend. If he has a particular, I don't know, rapport with an offender, is he going to be biased in favor of that offender? Because if they go back out in society and cause harm to someone else, it's not really going to affect him. Or maybe the only reason that he would be honest is because it will affect his bottom line. If it turns out that his, predictions about people are wrong, he won't get paid. Like, none of that seems particularly moral to me.
For you, it's about his
His work, right. Now, there might be some people that say, oh my gosh, I'm never going to see another movie by him. That's their choice.
Yeah, that's fine. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. There's some businesses I thought, oh, I don't want to, support that business because maybe I found out their founder isn't someone who holds my, same beliefs, and then I'll end up actually supporting them because they make a good chicken sandwich. So it happens.
So for a minute, Lauren had some moral ground to stand on, but she was willing to cede it to John pretty quickly in exchange for a good chicken sandwich. So I think we can draw inferences from that about how deeply held the values of these two people are.
The next step in this is if humans are essentially moral creatures, and that's how we see the world and evaluate them, we all want to be good. The question is, one of the questions that arises from that is, how do we maintain that? So when there's threats to our moral character, how do we maintain that perspective? How do we see ourselves as good? And the answer is there's something called the cognitive response principle.
Okay.
The cognitive response principle basically says...
So John's going to explain the cognitive response principle so that we all understand how these two are managing to twist what they've done into victimhood, essentially.
That any information you get is only going to confirm whatever beliefs or perspectives you have. So in other words, you can get information that contradicts your identity or your view of the world, and you're going to disregard it. You don't care, right? Because what you're going to do, the cognitive response principle basically says that all persuasion is self-persuasion, meaning you're going to get that information, you're going to come up with a lot of reasons why it's wrong, even though it's correct. Somebody gives you evidence of something, you're going to come up with a lot of reasons about why that's wrong and why you're still a good person.
He is making some really grand statements here, and I think that sweeping statements, and I think that they reveal a lot more about him than he is aware of revealing. Like, to suggest that all people are so cognitively biased that they are not able to take in information that challenges their biases is absolute nonsense, as far as I'm concerned. People who have the integrity and the strength of their convictions are often that way because they have tested those convictions and have found them to be, worthy. And, like we were saying, like I was literally just saying about being able to admit the limitations of things, and that's what good researchers do. They go, we're doing this study and it can't take into account every single last thing. So within these limitations, this is what we can conclude. And I think that there are a lot of people that have the integrity to do that and that can have their opinions changed when they see evidence. And the fact that he is going whole hog here with this idea that, people they will just reject any evidence that doesn't go with their cognitive biases, is telling us a lot about him, honestly.
Also something we talk about all the time, which is confirmation bias. Confirmation bias is you take evidence or information, you find the parts that confirm your view, you disregard the parts that don't,
right.
And all of a sudden you still believe the same thing. Right. So part of this is that if you're that 4-year-old kid who thinks that Gabriel's a herter, and let's say that kid grows up with Gabriel, let's say he lives in the same neighborhood, that kid at 4 thinks Gabriel's a herter. every bit of information that 4-year-old gets from there on out until they're adults, he could use to either confirm that view, or he could get information that Gabriel, in fact, is a really good kid. He's in the Boy Scouts. But you might take, let's say, he would take that information and disregard it and tell you why Gabriel is still such a bad kid.
Because you could also say, oh, he's in the Boy Scouts. Not.
It's the 4-year-old again. And I mean, I can't help thinking of the Groucho Marx quote, joke, whatever, where he says, I have the brain of a 4-year-old. He was glad to get rid of it. Like, the 4-year-old is going to grow up and have guidance from teachers and parents and siblings and etc. And I'm getting bored with the 4-year-old because we're not 4-year-olds. And even 4-year-olds grow up and have further psychological and emotional and intellectual, you name it, kinds of development. Sorry, let's go on.
Okay.
Wait,
Depending on how you see the Boy Scouts or how you want to see Gabriel. To your
I'm using that.
Okay, I'm just going to go by that one.
Using that. Yeah, that's true.
But that was actually a great example. Depending on how you want to see this, good or bad, it's how you'll connect the dots to confirm your bias to Gabriel or to create a new view.
Right, and this is important because if people are engaged in a smear campaign and they get information that contradicts their belief,
I mean, that's a big if, first of all.
they're going to ignore it.
Correct.
They're going to stay.
Again, with the sweeping generalizations about what people are going to do. I have watched this unfold, and my observation of what people have done here is they have looked at the evidence and they have come to a conclusion, and it just happens to be a conclusion that is not favorable to these two. And so he is now doing everything he can to support Lauren in her victimhood in an effort to try to save their channel and their reputation. And it's deplorable behavior from a psychologist.
They're going to stand their moral ground. They're going to stay with the moral superiority. They're going to remain in their self-righteous perspective because they have the moral authority.
They'll twist the evidence. They'll edit the evidence.
They'll edit it.
This is very, like, they are going to do that, right, Dr. John? They are going to do that? I don't know how many times. I mean, I might have to. Physician, heal thyself. I'll say it again.
Twist it. They're going to
They'll
show
pull
you.
the evidence out of context.
Right. They're going to show you whatever they want to show you because of confirmation bias and the cognitive response principle. So no matter what information you give them, it's not going to move the needle. It's not going to impact their perspective that you're a bad person and you're immoral. And they have to.
It's interesting, though, because, like, I mean, just to contrast, right? A lot of people had this view that Lauren and Dr. John were these really great people that were out there seeking justice for victims. And they saw evidence to the contrary, and they changed their minds.
Fight that battle on that moral terrain, because more than likely it's going to be much more difficult to fight it on the terrain of content and the quality of content.
I just don't agree with that anyway, but I prefer my content with ethics. Literally. I mean, I think most people do, honestly. I mean, okay, I'm going to stop now.
Yeah. But let's move on. So that's important to know because this is why when evidence comes out to the contrary, like you and I have gotten we've gotten a lot of feedback from people that's been very positive about creators we've helped, about victims we've helped. All these people have reached out to us, right? That contradicts their narrative.
Right.
And so therefore, that's information. That's evidence that contradicts their narrative about how immoral you are.
So, I mean, he's trying to make a point here that they have all this evidence of all the good that they've done. And on one side, like, I mean, if you just look at it on the surface, he has a point, and there are people that will agree with that. But if you look at it from the point of view of people have a right to interpret that evidence, and people also have a right to rethink, right? A lot of people are saying that they did support Lauren and John Matthias's channel and that they liked them to begin with, but as time went on and evidence started to come out, also, that they changed their minds, and people have a right to do that. This whole, he is moralizing more than anyone that I have come across in this whole saga, except for Lauren.
Therefore, they're going to use confirmation bias, and they're going to use cognitive response principle to negate or deny or minimize or delete all of that information that could change their perspective, right? That's how you continue on a smear campaign. Yeah. You put it on moral terrain, you disengage from any contrary evidence, and that's how you keep going. In fact, that's how you escalate. But let's
I think that getting a civil stalking injunction is another way that you can escalate your moral crusade. Just an observation.
take the next step in this analysis, and this is a step I love. There's something called
he loves this step, which is such a weird, I don't know. Like, he is loving this. He loves the sound of his own voice. He loves all this psychological, it's to some extent, there's truth in a lot of what he's saying, to be sure. But it's also, he's sort of using it to shape the narrative in the way that he wants. And he's just warming to his topic here, folks. So put your seatbelts on.
Fundamental attribution error. The fundamental attribution error is probably one of the fundamental principles of psychology. It's been proven over and over again by research.
Okay.
It's if there
fundamental attribution error. So here we go. I'm going to learn something.
If there's such thing as a law in the field of psychology, this would be close to that.
Okay.
Another law. There's a psychologist recently deceased, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi is his name. He used to teach at the University of Chicago. He taught flow. He wrote about flow. He's kind of the father of that. He believed that Lord Acton's law was also a similar law. Lord Acton's law, I'm just throwing this out there to give you an example of another law in psychology. Lord Acton's law says that power corrupts.
He's just putting it out there to hear the sound of his own voice.
And absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
So
the sage Lauren has weighed in.
Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi believed that was a law. This is another, what I would consider to be close to a law of human behavior. Fundamental attribution error. So what is the fundamental attribution error says that human beings overestimate the importance of personality in explaining behavior as opposed to the situation. So let me repeat that. That human beings, whenever something occurs, human beings prefer to explain events in terms of personality rather than the situation. So the evidence for the fundamental attribution error, for example, would be the famous Milgram experiments where you shock people because the experimenter is in the position of an authority figure wearing a lab coat, and he says, basically shock this person until they're screaming in pain, and subjects do it. They do it because of the situation, not because they're bad people.
Yeah.
Okay, the Milgram experiments.
There's the Stanford prison experiments where people are put in the context of a prison and they start acting out like abusive prison guards, not because they're bad people, but because the prison guards are given too much authority, right? There's the Ash experiments that I talked about on our Patreon, where groups are shown lines of different magnitudes. They're given a reference line and they're shown 3 lines of different magnitudes, and members of the group are Confederates, and they're told, hey, look, this is clear cut. There's one line that matches the 3, but we want the Confederates to say that this line is actually the wrong line. In other words, to say that this longer line is a shorter one, and to get people in that group to believe it. And you know what? 75% of the time, one of the group members believes that the wrong line is the right line simply because of group peer pressure. Those are all examples of where the situation, it's not because these people have defective personalities.
No. Group peer pressure. Group peer pressure.
So here's where the fundamental attribution error is really important in terms of this smear campaign.
Okay, this is it, folks.
I can't stress this enough. That almost every person involved in the smear campaign talked about you positively.
Yeah.
They all talked about you in a positive light before you rejected them.
So he's literally contradicting what he just said about people being given new information and, having the cognitive bias to reject it because of what they've already decided. So this is the opposite of that now. And now he's going to go on to say that he's going to try to suggest that being rejected is a situation that caused people to act out and behave badly. And it's not their personalities, it's the situation that they're in. But my take on this is that it's Lauren's personality that had people reject her. And he's twisting the whole thing around to claim victimization once again.
Before there was a change.
Some of them rejected me too.
Yeah, but the point is that you were essentially positive, and then certain circumstances changed it, and all of a sudden you became evil, right? How is that relevant? Because they saw your personality as good. They saw you as kind. We have messages from people proving this.
Yeah.
Until their friendship with you or their relationship with you changed. And then all of a sudden, they became haters, you became bad, right?
I just want to comment here, just as an aside to this, that like he's talking about her having this kind personality and being so generous to people and all the rest of it. And one thing that I have observed about these type of personalities is that they tend to give so that they can take. And that's how they operate. So by being complimentary, by mirroring you, by drawing you in, by being generous with their time, with their money, with their home, with their whatever, they get you in a position where you then feel obligated to them. And also it's very confusing to us, right? Like, you start to like, if Lauren has always been kind to you and then all of a sudden she does something mean, it's discombobulating, and you have all this other evidence that she's nice, so you kind of brush that aside and go, oh, she was having a bad day or whatever, which is exactly what he was talking about earlier. But I mean, all that to say that these type of people are notoriously generous in service of being able to take what they need. And often what they need is, legions of people to prop up their extremely fragile egos.
It's the fundamental attribution error. Do you just go from saying, oh, you know what, this person is so nice. One of these people that is no longer with us, she said, oh, John and Lauren are angels. Right? One of these people said...
Right? Like, I mean...
oh, Lauren is so kind.
Someone just sent us, we've been getting a lot of messages, by the way, from people that know people, and thank you. Someone else sent us a message from somebody that said they are just as nice as in person as they are on their podcast.
See all this proof we have of how nice we are? See all the proof we have of how good we are? See all the people that we've fooled who haven't seen through our grift? This is all the evidence. So they give so that they can take. And what they're taking in this instance is they're helping themselves to a reputation that is not legitimately theirs.
And now
you're evil. So the issue is, this explains it. This law of psychology, the fundamental attribution error explains it. Is it because you have a defective personality and you're evil and immoral? No. It's the fact that the situation changed. How did it?
So I'm interested that from the perspective of a psychologist that he is leaning quite heavily on this personality thing, when very often people who engage in these type of toxic behaviors have traits of, various personality disorders. But he doesn't mention that in the context of what is happening here. It's all very self-serving. All of what he's saying is self-serving.
It changed because you either changed their employment, you changed your relationship with them, maybe you had a falling out in your friendship. It wasn't that your personality changed, it's that their status with you.
It's not that her personality changed, it's that her personality was revealed. Whatever nonsense he's trying to talk about here, that their status changed. Like, he's talking about Lauren as though she's some, I don't know, some kind of royalty or something, and that she's, pardon me, got like ladies in waiting who are in and out of favor, and that's what they're mad about, is that they were out of favor this week, not that they're mad about being treated the way that Lauren has treated them. Christina, for example, 9-hour live video calling the woman a stalker over 400 times, and that's just the beginning of what she did to that woman.
Changed. And because that status changed, they hate you. So, why is this important?
I just want to say that is just absolute and complete tripe and nonsense. Period. The end.
Because all the evidence here suggests that these people all saw you as good and moral and virtuous.
All the evidence suggests that they did, and that is partly why they felt so horribly betrayed when they found out what she was really like. And that she was more interested in clicks than she was in either her friends, her ladies in waiting, or the victims of the crimes that she is purportedly seeking justice for.
Until something happened, they either rejected you rejected them, the friendship changed, right?
The situation changed.
The situation changed. And so in that sense, it's really no different than the Milgram experiments. In the sense,
oh my God, all these, like, again, right? Like, he has to compare Lauren to all the most famous victims in the world, and the most famous psychological experiments, and most famous actors. Like, she's some kind of a Nobel laureate or something. Good God.
that the situation is being guided by an authority figure, that's how you get the subjects to shock people, right? It's not that the people performing the shock treatments changed their personalities. Is that the situation changed. And so,
this is just the thinnest analogy. I can't even, there's barely any connection here to what has happened in this situation. It's not even that it's like he's flipping it around to do the whole Darbo thing. It's like there's literally no connection here. It's wild.
The most compelling evidence and most compelling argument here is you didn't change.
Thank you.
I know you didn't change.
Someone actually tried to tell me.
No, she was always a vapid, empty soul seeking, attention and validation from others so that she's, can exist.
That changed. Thank you.
You didn't change at all. The situation changed. Their status and relationship with you changed. That's it. You're the same person.
Thanks. Still drive you crazy. I can still be annoying.
Yeah, right. You can be annoying, but you know what? I'm an adult.
Like this very moment, for instance.
I can handle being called annoying or having people say they're annoying. Like, that's what mature adults do. They can handle being called annoying. You can call me annoying too. You do all the time.
So these two are doing the absolute opposite of handling being called annoying. For anybody who's just arriving.
You can be really annoying.
That's what grown-ups do. That's what mature people do. They can handle being labeled something.
Yeah.
So,
particularly if that label is kind, helper, Sorry, moving on.
We're covering a lot of terrain here. Fundamental attribution error is proof that you're not the one who changed.
Why is she writing that down? What is she going to do with that?
The relationship changed. You're the same person.
This is not proof of anything. And anybody who does research of any kind should be absolutely embarrassed at the idea that what he's just laid out is proof of anything.
It doesn't mean you're without flaws. It doesn't mean that you're imperfect. But
I'm not perfect. I'm perfect.
So let's stay with this idea of morality, though. So with you, the fundamental attribution here basically says that you went from being a good, virtuous, moral person, and then your relationship with these people changed, and all of a sudden you're immoral, right? You're a defective character. That's the argument. It's ridiculous because every single one of these people had a change in relationship status with you, and every single one of them turned against you because of it.
He's so close to getting it, and yet he's miles away.
Not because you changed. And so obviously, what does that suggest? That's envy. That's envy.
Oh, I get it. Yes, everybody's jealous of Lauren, of course, because we all want to be these shallow, smarmy, fake reporters on YouTube with Botox. And we can't all be that. So there's bound to be some envy. I mean, there's only one homecoming queen, guys.
We'll talk about that more later. But before we do, people still might be saying, all right, whatever, John, like, people are moral creatures. They want to think they're good. They don't change their perspective of themselves. Fundamental attribution error. Okay, so what? This is the part, I think, that's important, because now we're going to get into why there are risks here and why this is a real problem. A lot of people, maybe not a lot, I'm sorry, there's some chatter out there that this is just like a big cat fight, right? This is just like a bunch of mean girls going at it. There's no victimization. There's no risk of violence, right? This is just all overblown. I'm going to show you now why that's not true. There's something I'm going to read from a book
in other words, you're saying that I don't have a stalker and that I did a 9-hour live crying.
You were faking the whole...
There are a lot of people out there that are saying, oh, it's just mean girls, it's just cat fights, it's just whatever. But those people are probably not actually aware of what's going on, or they are sort of misogynist and they tend to belittle things that involve women in the first place. They don't like to listen to women's voices, people who belittle cat ladies, those sort of people. Yeah, so just saying.
Thing, and you were crying about a cat fight.
Or right? Dramatic. And...
So we'll get to that in a little bit. There's a couple of psychologists, Alan Fisk and Tage Rye. They wrote a book called Virtuous Violence. They've done a lot of research on this, by the way, so there's empirical support for this theory.
Okay.
But I'm going to read a little bit from the book and start explaining why this moral crusade and this desire for certain party, this self-righteous moral, referendum on you is important. So here we go. Most violence, this is according to the theory by Fisk and Ray, most violence is morally motivated. People do not simply justify or excuse their violent actions after the fact. At the moment they act, people intend to cause harm or death to someone they feel should suffer or die. That is, people are impelled to violence when they feel that to regulate certain social relationships, imposing suffering or death is necessary, natural, legitimate, desirable, condoned, admired, and ethically gratifying.
So he's taking a huge leap here, in my opinion, from people asking for accountability to people wanting to murder Lauren. And I think it's unethical of him to do that. I think he's fanning the flames of the division here, and I think he is encouraging Lauren in her victimization and in her kind of histrionic response to all of this. I am not trying to sort of discount the fact that people, that mobs have been created online that send death threats and do horrible things to people who really were just, famous for a moment or whatever. I know that sort of thing does happen. But I don't think that John is being responsible in his reaction here. And I think that if he and she were genuinely interested in calming things down, they would take accountability, they would listen to their detractors, and they would come up with an apology video and try to calm the rhetoric instead of trying to fan the flames. And again, it's an ethical breach for a psychologist to be I don't think that he's legitimately warning about this. I think that he is stoking it.
In short, most violence is the exercise of moral rights and obligations. Working within the framework of a relational models theory, our thesis is that people are morally motivated to do violence to create, conduct, protect, redress, terminate, or mourn social relationships with the victim or with others. We call our theory virtuous violence theory. So why is this important? It's important.
He's trying to like pathologize the entire true crime community that has, you know, kind of had taken issue with hidden true crime. And he, with all of these comparisons with people who commit acts of violence with some kind of a, you know, a moral feeling or backing or whatever, that's moral justification or whatever. Yeah, he's like pathologizing you and me and everybody who has looked sideways at these two.
Because there's a lot of evidence suggesting, I'm going to read a line in here that I think is really critical. In short, most violence is the exercise of moral rights and obligations, right? The reason this is important is because virtuous violence theory completely applies to your situation in the sense that the people engaging in the smear campaign feel morally justified. They feel like their moral rights were violated and they want retribution.
So once again, he's describing them. Like Lauren felt like she was justified in seeking a, you know, civil stalking injunction. And so she went out and committed this act of, it's not violence, but it, you know, you can kind of extend it, right? People act based on their moral judgments or their moral, you know, convictions. And so she had a moral conviction that she was being, you know, unfairly treated by Christina, and she therefore had a right to sic the police on her. And to me, like, obviously I have respect for law enforcement and the role of law enforcement in a civil society and in a democracy and all that, but I am also aware of the fact that, you know, there is not sufficient oversight in law enforcement, and that anytime that you call the police on someone, there is a risk of violence, and that she is the one who has brought violence into the ring here with her civil stalking injunction.
One of them reposted on her TikTok that we should bring back public shaming. That's kind of what you're...
Exactly.
I mean, I'm not totally against public shaming. I mean, you know, I think that the reason that, you know, all these incidents of violent racism are on the rise worldwide is because people have not been sufficiently shamed about being racist filth, basically. You know, it used to be shameful to be, you know, fascist or fascist adjacent. People are now proudly, you know, sporting all kinds of fascist insignia, you know, publicly. So I feel like, you know, being ashamed of being a fascist in public is probably a good thing.
Which is the Salem witch trials too. I mean, I guess a lot of people feel that way, clearly.
But the larger point here is that there's research supporting this, and that if you engage in kind of this extreme moral crusade against someone, the natural and logical conclusion to that is harm or death.
This is not an extreme moral crusade against someone. Again, like, the Spanish Inquisition was an extreme moral crusade. This is a group of people asking for accountability.
And if you think about the smear campaign, so the stalker who began the TikTok, she says quite clearly that her goal is to burn the kingdom down, right? It's clear that her goal is not only harm, reputational harm, emotional harm, psychological harm, but the harm that she really wants to affect is to ruin you and ruin your life and burn the whole kingdom down.
So again, he's like equating things that are not equal here. He's kind of saying that Christina wants to harm her reputation and harm her business and burn her kingdom to the ground, as though Lauren is some innocent, victim. She's like the damsel in distress tied to the railroad tracks while the evil villain is, well, the evil villain hides in the bushes and watches the train rushing towards her. This is not the case. It's like saying that people are wishing harm on anyone. Like that they're wishing harm on Lori Vallow because they want her to be accountable for what she did to her children. It's not the same thing. Lauren is not an innocent victim damsel in distress. Lauren brought this on herself, and then she made it a 5-alarm fire by putting out that 9-hour live where she defamed Christina over 400 times. So you have to take basically every single thing he says with, a salt mine.
Right? The goal. So what that's implying is that she won't stop until that harm is executed and complete.
Okay, that's not what she's implying in any way. I'm shocked that for a man who was so committed to excellence, that he is unaware of metaphor and that he's unaware of consequences for bad behavior. It's shocking.
So if she burns the kingdom down, then she feels morally vindicated. Or if there's a death, if someone harms themselves or someone harms...
Again, like, to me, this is pure defamation. He is basically saying that Christina is not going to be happy until someone is dead, which is an enormous statement to make about someone without any kind of proof at all that that's the case. It's... I honestly, I hope that someone is looking into having this guy's license revoked for this behavior. It's appalling.
You, then the game's over. She's morally vindicated. Here's the problem. Here's the risk. This is why this is so risky and so important. Because these people, these self-righteous, morally superior people, they want moral vindication. And they're not going to stop until they get moral vindication. And the way they get...
Again, people want accountability, and he's twisting that so that they can be victimized.
Moral vindication, the way this game ends is either you're dead or you're completely ruined. That's it. And that, by the way, is malicious intent. One of the things about stalking, and we're going to talk about the definition of stalking in a little bit.
They could literally end this game by putting out an apology video today, and it would be over.
There has to be malicious intent. There has to be some intent to cause harm. You have it in spades here. When someone says that they want to burn your kingdom down, when they want to expose you, when they want to harm you, they feel...
I don't think Christina ever said that she wanted to harm Lauren. She wants accountability. That's what I heard.
Justified in doing it. They feel, as virtuous violence theory would predict, they feel like in short, most violence is the exercise of moral rights and obligations. That's exactly what this is.
That's not exactly what this is. Christina, as far as I have seen, I have never seen Christina call for violence against Lauren. She is talking about metaphorically being cut down to size after having it exposed what she's been up to. Again, I think this is incredibly unethical of Dr. John to be talking this way about Christina with the weight of his credentials behind him. It's shocking.
Exercising in their mind their moral rights and obligations because you harm them, because you're immoral, because you're a bad person, and they will not stop until their goal is met, which is to ruin you or have you end up dead. That's the goal. Let me continue with I'm going to read another part of this book that's so important. Same book, Virtuous Violence, same authors. This is page 17. Quote, virtuous violence theory proposes that the perpetrator intends to harm or kill in order to constitute a social relationship, to make it correspond with a prescriptive model of what the relationship ought to be, what it must be made to be. In other words, people engage in virtuous violence to get people to conform, and they want them to conform to their perception of a prescriptive model or an ideal of what they think the relationship should be.
Again, this is exactly what they're doing. And the prescriptive violence here is the civil stalking injunction and the efforts to and the constant calling of the police and the escalating the situation at CrimeCon, getting her kicked out, getting her. This is exactly what they're doing, and they're turning it around to make it look like they're being victimized by Christina. Again, the projection is wild, and the fact that John is so incapable of seeing it is really shocking in terms of his profession.
That's all over this. That's all over this situation. They're evaluating you, and again, this gets to the question of moral authority. They're evaluating you against an ideal of loyalty and conformity and acquiescence and fitting in above all else.
I feel like people are evaluating Lauren against who she professed to be. And when it has turned out that she is not that person, they have a right to ask for accountability from her and ask for explanations.
Not doing is they're not evaluating against they're not evaluating against the criteria of quality work, right? We talked about they're not evaluating you against the criteria of creativity. They're not evaluating you against the criteria of complexity because they're not allowing you to be complex.
No, I need to conform.
You need to conform, right? If you reject them, you're not conforming. You're not loyal. Like one of the things.
So we're gonna, not only are we going to, like, she's not only a victim, but she's actually a hero here, right? So she is the nonconformist who is going against the peer pressure to be, I don't know what is it that I can't even, like, he hasn't even said what is it that people are trying to force her to conform to. Like, there's no, to conform to what exactly?
You see throughout this entire TikTok is, oh, she's a bad friend. I'm going to punish her for being a bad friend. She doesn't know what friendship is. That's the ideal. That's the reason why there's a real risk of violence here is because, number one, this can escalate so easily. And number two, you don't fit that ideal. You never did. You're not conforming to this very narrow, rigid perspective that they want you to fit into.
What a friend.
She's not conforming to the very narrow, rigid perspective of how friends treat each other, which is not stabbing each other in the back and deliberately manipulating to try to ruin people's careers so that they can get ahead themselves. I mean, maybe John needs a dictionary.
Friend isn't their friend, and yeah.
That makes this, by the way, I mentioned the moral crusade. That makes this an ideological battle in the sense that the fight here is, to them.
Okay, we've moved on from moral to ideological. Look out.
The fight here is good versus evil or good versus bad. They're good, you're evil, and because of that, the only possible way out of this is total.
He's the one who's doing that, though. It's so interesting. Like, he's the one who's doing this good, bad. And anyone who is questioning Lauren is bad, and Lauren is apparently good because of her work. And the rest of us are bad for questioning her. He is the one who's doing this.
Ruination of you or death. I'm going to read a quick quote here. Making this point.
I mean,
This is from a book called Human Destructiveness by Anthony Storr. Anthony Storr.
What? Humans destructive? No.
Anthony Storr is a brilliant British psychiatrist. He's written a lot on a lot of topics. He's writing here about, obviously, human aggression and destructiveness. Here's Anthony Storr, page 142. My dogma is, quote, my dogma is that all dogma is suspect. And it seems to me that most of the harm in the world is done by those who are dogmatically certain that they are right.
Like, John is over here being as dogmatic as you could possibly be. I'm sorry, I know I've said it a bunch of times, but the projection is just wild.
For being absolutely right means that those who disagree are absolutely wrong. Those who are absolutely wrong are, of course, dangerous to society and must be restrained or eliminated.
These two are literally the one who have turned this all into absolutes. And now they're turning around and suggesting that anyone who doesn't agree that Lauren's work is Pulitzer worthy and that her moral character is completely unstained are bad people. It's
the beginning of the road to the torture chamber and the gas oven. Unquote.
Okay, so again, like, now Lauren is, they're equating her to Jews in Germany during the Third Reich. Like, because people asked her to be accountable for her behavior. She's essentially a genocide victim now.
That's what we're talking about.
That's where this is leading, people. That's what we're talking about.
So when people say, oh, gee, this is just Mean Girls, this is just a stupid cat fight.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I have no desire to see Lauren in a gas oven. Just to be 100% clear.
They don't understand the stakes here. They don't understand what's going on. They don't understand that to the people in the smear campaign, this is a more...
We're all too stupid to understand what's going on here, which is why it's so good that John is here with all his amazing work to help us understand what we're actually doing here, because we have no self-reflection or insight.
crusade that is reducing you to someone or something that's subhuman that needs to be destroyed. This is an ideological war.
Okay, so I haven't seen anybody dehumanizing Lauren, but I have seen clips from, I think it was whatever channel that Ron guy is on, Duty Ron, basically dehumanizing Lauren's detractors. So, again, literal Darvo.
Against you. And by the way, many of the people in the smear campaign that we have not named are continuing. They have continued. Just so you know, I'm not going to talk about it more than that. Let's talk about some other risks.
He's not going to talk about it more than that until he goes completely off later about various things.
We will get into defining stalking in a minute, and we'll get into the psychology of stalking in a minute. But as long as we're talking about risks, I want to bring up some real risks here. People say, oh my gosh, why would you get a restraining order if this is just a catfight among mean girls? Nothing's going to happen. This is nothing, right? No, virtuous violence theory suggests otherwise. And if you do...
Virtuous violence theory, I don't know. I mean, I would have to look it up. But I feel like literally he was talking about people who have violent offenders who are in prison, who have then been interviewed to talk about why they did what they did and that they have found some moral justification for it in the aftermath of the violence. So he's basically equating everybody who disagrees with Lauren's behavior with violent offenders. Just so we're clear.
As I've done, if you do some of the stalking risk assessments, the risks are considerable.
And this is what he does: is he assesses and evaluates offenders. So,
which is why he shouldn't be on here doing this.
This is what you do with your philosophy.
We know
Psychology.
There's so many examples of when you engage with people on a moral crusade and your goal is to dehumanize them, and you see it as a moral issue, it will escalate.
Again, I don't see people trying to dehumanize Lauren, so you can basically ignore whatever he's saying now.
That was a concern you and I had. If people say, oh my God, the stalking order is so frivolous. No, it's not. And this is why. Because you and I were trying to prevent someone landing at our door with a gun. We did not want to get to that point.
And somebody has now threatened us with that online.
Yes.
And they couldn't be more proud, honestly. Their first death threat. I mean, whew, there's going to be a gender reveal later.
We received our first official death threat the other day.
Literally, they're proud of it. Ugh.
Which again,
not our first official, actually.
Yeah, that's true. We've had others. That's true.
It was very chilling.
It was chilling, and it shows you the extent to which, when you start framing things in terms of this moral crusade, this is what you get. What are some of the other risks? And we're going to define stalking as...
When you start framing things in terms of this moral crusade, this is what you get, right, Dr. John? Who's framing everything in terms of a moral crusade?
Second, but let's talk about some of the other risks involved here and why this is not just mean girl behavior. Number one, the obsessive nature of...
Again, what is just mean girl behavior, John? Please define your terms.
The posts. Everyone we talk about this all the time. The number of criminals engaged in murder or very violent acts, almost all of them have some type of obsessive qualities. They ruminate about the victim. They can't stop thinking about the victim. They obsess over the victim, right? That creates an attachment to the victim. Here you have that type of obsession.
Again, he's equating apples and oranges, chalk and cheese to make his point. He's twisting things to make his point that he's equating someone who is obsessive and then stalking someone because of delusions they have, maybe about having some kind of a love relationship with that person. He's comparing that with someone who is ruminating over an incident of abuse that they suffered, incident or incidents of abuse that they suffered at the hands of an abuser. Just to be clear about what we're trying to compare here, he's trying to equate these two very different things.
Another risk here.
Months and months and months of posts, despite not communicating.
Well, despite you saying you feel threatened.
Yeah, starting with I feel threatened, then the social media, the Instagram too.
All she has to say is, I feel threatened. Like, it's literally the white woman defense. This is what got Emmett Till killed, right? Yeah, so let's just remember, she's weaponizing I feel threatened so that she can turn around and literally instigate this, virtuous violence that he was just talking about against someone by sicking the police on them.
Instagram and TikTok, and there's a YouTube, no, actually, until after this, months and months and months and months of it without any response from me. Escalating. Obsessive.
There's also this inordinate rage and hatred towards you.
Again, he's not defining his terms. What's this inordinate rage and hatred? Inordinate to what? What was her crime? She hasn't admitted what she did. So how do we know if the response is inordinate or not? We don't.
And that's a risk. Because when people develop this intense rage towards another human being, and I think, by the way, with the TikToker, I think a lot of that is repressed. But you see it.
Oh, he thinks a lot of that's repressed. So he is, again, he's diagnosing this person with repressed rage.
The way you see that rage is by ignoring the stalking injunction, right? The way you see that rage come out is by being oppositional. It's after our first hearing, it's going outside of the courtroom steps and doing a mic drop. That's taunting you. The stalker did that. On the day of our hearing in September, she went outside.
So he's again defaming her here, calling her a stalker, particularly in light of the fact that we all know what happened when they went to court and Christina got to say her piece, albeit not very... She canceled it before it all came out. But, yeah.
She filmed herself doing a mic drop. That's harassment.
It was supposed to be our evidentiary hearing, and the judge changed it to a later date, and
the judge continued it
and lessened the stalking injunction, and she went out and did a mic drop.
She went out and did a mic drop. Like, how is that harassment? How is celebrating a win in court harassing Lauren? It absolutely, literally is not.
Utah code, by the way. Utah code specifies quite clearly that you can't modify a stalking injunction without hearing evidence from the petitioner, from Lauren. And the injunction was...
So John is a lawyer now, and a legal professional. So
modified without hearing a shred of evidence from us. Also, just so people know this, our lawyer tried to get the stalking injunction enforced.
My lawyer is not my brother. Yes, go ahead.
So our lawyer, Daston, not her brother, our lawyer who...
One of four.
Yeah, one of four. Right.
They have 4 lawyers. That's how important they are.
Have other lawyers too. None of them
are my brother.
Oh, they have other lawyers as well. None of them are her brother. She has more than one brother, I guess.
Yeah, so whatever, let the rumor mill. Our lawyer tried to argue correctly that because there were multiple violations of a stalking injunction, which is a felony, that the stalking injunction should get automatically enforced. Guess what?
That is Utah code. That is if you violate twice.
Our lawyer made the point that hearing never should have even occurred. It shouldn't have even been an issue. It's black and white. Someone violated a stalking injunction. It gets enforced. It should have been enforced. End of story. Let's move on. You and I have our privacy intact. That's all we wanted. We wanted this to be private. We wanted to move on with our lives without someone harassing.
They wanted it all to be private, and that was very clear from the start with Lauren's 9-hour video that she didn't want this getting out.
Harassing us all the time, bullying us, stalking us.
Calling. We'll get into that later. Calling people, contacting people.
That's all we wanted. This argument that somehow we wanted views from
people calling each other, contacting each other, getting together to discuss and compare notes. Excuse me. None of that is stalking. None of it is illegal. I'm sure these two would really like it if the First Amendment was waived for their personal comfort, but I don't see that happening.
That's so ridiculous. Lauren, I'm not going to read it again. Lauren read a motion that our lawyer wrote to protect our privacy. Almost no civil stalking cases reveal or disclose the information.
Well, and the reason many people have asked that fairly, and you know what? Let's not even get into it. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Let the rumor mill continue.
Yeah,
You
that's
guys
fine.
decide
That's
what you think
whatever.
about what I did. That's your right to discuss. Go ahead.
So you have this obsessive behavior that,
And yet this whole video is the exact opposite of her being, that's fine, everybody, you're free to discuss. She's literally trying to shut everybody down from discussing.
increases risk. You have this inordinate amount of anger and rage towards you, which shows up in those TikToks and the social media.
Again, how do we know it's inordinate if we don't know what the whole story?
And another thing that people pointed out that I totally agree with is several people that have looked at the TikTok have written and said, one person wrote, those are the most menacing TikToks I've ever seen.
I'm going to venture that that person hasn't left their own front garden in a decade or more.
Somebody else wrote, it seems like she's taking pleasure in those, right? That suggests
It does seem like she's taking pleasure in those, just like I'm taking pleasure in this. Calling people out righteously is, it's one of life's pleasures.
that if that's true, that suggests that there's a sadistic quality, that this is someone taking pleasure in.
Again, he is just milking this stuff. Like, my God, how is it sadism to want people to experience the consequences of their behavior?
Harming you, taking pleasure in hurting you, taking pleasure in trying to ruin your character and your reputation and your livelihood and your life. Right?
She has done all of that herself. People are taking pleasure in the consequences that are being currently visited upon her.
That's a risk factor. Anyone who has sadistic qualities.
Again, none of this is sadistic, so you can now just ignore whatever he's going to say.
Going to be a higher risk. Another risk factor here is this very oppositional, let's call it antisocial quality, which is
it's oppositional to disagree with Dr. John and Laura Mathias, just in case you were thinking of disagreeing. Know that makes you oppositional.
violating a stalking injunction in the first several hours after it's issued, right? That's basically
Violating a civil stalking injunction, right? You are oppositional.
saying, I don't care. If you see the picture
Should she have cared, though? Really?
of her in the bar with you, the message she's sending is, not only do I not care about the stalking injunction, but I'm going to intimidate you. That is a pure message.
I feel like that picture, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like that picture is from a time when Christina was already there and then Lauren came in. And so now he's suggesting that that Christina not immediately jumping up and running out the door is deliberate intimidation.
Of power and control and dominance and intimidation. She's saying, I'm here. I don't care about this injunction. I am going to continue to intimidate and control you no matter what.
For the record, I absolutely disagree that she's doing any of those things. She's literally living her life, and Lauren is walking around with, a rape whistle and the police on speed dial so that she can position herself and take videos of herself being victimized.
And stop me. That's concerning. The mic drop moment I just mentioned.
Recording the police officer calling after somebody that was called by police implicated her, and so he decided to call her too, and that she called him back to record it.
Right, recording the police officer, posting it online, and essentially not taking the police officer seriously. That's extremely oppositional. That's very antisocial. That's a very antisocial feature.
Posting.
These people just aggravate me so much with their absolute garbage diagnosis of someone they have no right to be diagnosing.
That I feel threatened in a message to her and then posting that online.
And all of this, by the way, so we're talking about risk factors.
Yeah,
we're talking risk factors, right? All of these are risk factors, but they all lead to one thing, and that is dehumanization. What they're doing here is they're portraying you as evil, as the devil, even though Pinata Samurai doesn't mind if you're the devil, by the way. Thank you, Pinata Samurai, for acknowledging that apparently even the devil does really good work.
But I will do my best to not be like that.
All of this leads to dehumanization, and you and I know every crime we've ever covered involves some level of dehumanization.
Absolutely, that is crime. Dehumanization.
And all of this,
again, she's equating herself to people who are actual victims of actual violence and actual dehumanization for clicks.
This is about dehumanizing you. Even the people that are mocking you, the memes, it's all dehumanizing, right? But they don't care, right? So, which is fine.
It's fine. It's fine. They're not bothered. What do you mean? They're fine. It's fine.
We've been giving people some good content. A 9-hour live would do that.
Okay, I think I'm going to stop here. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop here. This is probably going to take so long because I have so much to say. So anyway, just thanks again for tuning in today. I super appreciate all the encouragement I've had from everybody. And I will catch up with you in part 3 of The Smear People.